welcome to the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee this Monday, September 9th. I'd like to welcome everybody tonight and everybody at home watching from Rogers or streaming. Call the Standing Committee to order. Today we acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. We are thankful to share in the special spirit of this place, rich in the energy of Mother Earth, our ancestors, and the love of all creation. Adoption of the agenda. That the content of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee agenda September 9th, 2019 be adopted as presented. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Berman, seconded by Councillor McLeod. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. Business arising from previous minutes.
I have some.
Okay.
I actually have a question that maybe dealt with. I'm not entirely sure how this works from when these things happen, but we had in our June meeting, we were discussing the operational budget program review for PRC, and at that point no date was set, and I was wondering if we have a date for that or some inkling of a date to come. I don't know whether we put that in other business or whether we do that in business arising.
Well, I think because this is our first committee back after a nice summer, a nice trip to Ottawa, I really don't care, so I'm going to look to the clerk and ask where she would like to put it, because we have a lot of good news coming out of this meeting tonight, so let's just deal with this stuff and get to the good stuff.
That's right.
Certainly through the chair to the committee, I would be fine if it was appropriate to ask the department head at this point.
Okay. Director Culver.
Thank you, Chair. So we're pretty much ready to go. Staff has been prepping and pulling together all the relevant material based on the terms of reference that we had shared with Council. So we feel like we're ready to go. We're just looking for an SIC date that, and I would suggest that probably early October, late September, early October would be ideal, but it kind of contingent upon Council schedules.
Thank you.
That's good. Thank you very much, sir. Any other business arising? Councillor Comey.
Thank you, Chair. I think there is then, just to bring everyone back up to speed, last time we met under other business, there had been the Fisherfield Clubhouse, which was awesome. We got our staff report, cycling plan, that's going to be cool. We'll hear that tonight. But then there's the Harbour View splash pad. I'm sure parents would love to hear an update on that.
Sure.
Director Culver.
Yeah, so the Harbour View splash pad, let me go through my notes really quickly. So where we're at with the Harbour View splash pad is initially, as everyone knows, the Waterfront Master Plan identified the Harbour View Park to be the location of the splash pad. So we set about doing a pre-consultation with the Development Committee, which gave us kind of an intensive list of studies to be accomplished, which include things like an EIS, an environmental impacts assessment, a D4 landfill study, and a flood analysis. So Burnside Engineering was compelled to complete those, which they have. So now we're currently working with our landscape architect on a site layout. We're meeting this week actually on the site plan, and based on that we hope to have a services design from Burnside coming soon. And that will inform our tender for services installation. We're also expecting to share the final site plan and water park concept with the Standing Committee on November 4th. And following that, our next step will be to secure a general contractor with water play experience, and that'll be acquired by a tender over the winter in an effort to secure favorable pricing. And we still hope for construction to begin in the spring.
Good news. Thank you. Councillor Comey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, if you find yourself within the meeting that comes up, please just mention it then. Deputations, 5.1, Collingwood Creative Community Map. Mr. Donald Brahman is here. Welcome, sir. Sir, he seems to think I was speaking with her when I said welcome, sir. So we all have a map given to us, a fantastic map done. I'm sure that there will be some made available for the public if you haven't received
I have
them.
some extra copies.
Oh, God bless you.
And there'll be some downstairs at the front of the hall as well.
Perfect.
And also between Meaford and Wasaga Beach, every public place you can go to, this map's been already installed. So.
Excellent. So, sir, just before we start, I'm going to put on my timer for 10 minutes. I'm not going to, if you go over 11 minutes, that's fine. But please do your best to stay within that 10 minutes. Thank you.
very much. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to this evening's meeting to talk about our map and how it came about and the people involved. Very quickly, the intent was to create a common interest for the arts in Collingwood, and it came about as a result of a meeting that I attended in the Tremont studios amongst the various artists, and the lack of promotion and things like that, and found that there was a lot of bureaucracy involved, and there was a lot of politics involved. And being new to Collingwood, I put my hand up and said, this is silly. Why don't we do something proactively and just take the bulls by the horn? And contacted the town, tried to involve them. There was some reluctance to do so because of we'd asked for some money. So we moved ahead on our own. And through a process of collaboration amongst the artists in town, I literally went studio by studio, door to door, of all the galleries as well, and tried to overcome some of the issues that had taken place in the past between Year Ontario and Simcoe Street, etc. Got full agreement from everybody that they would participate in the map. Our goal was to make it cost neutral, and that would be no cost to anybody that was featured onto the map. They had to have a public presence so that people could actually access their premises. And we had a number of people that contacted us that wanted to be on the map, but they operate out of their garage or their basement, but weren't open to the public, so we had to pass on that, perhaps on a future map. The other thing was to engage local resources. So we engaged the gentleman who's in the audience, John Haynes, who's well known to everybody as a local artist and does this fabulous perspective. And we engaged John, and he drew up the map that carries us from Blue Mountain right through to Wasaga Beach and gives people a good sense of where they are when they're in town. And then we went door to door looking for sponsorship and advertising, found the right number of people to pay for the map. And then we also indicated that we would give any surplus that was generated out of the map, because it was cost neutral, to a youth arts initiative. So we've engaged Home Horizons to look at putting a art therapy program in place with the funds that we had in excess of our costs, which is about $2,300. We've also engaged BMFA, who are one of the co-sponsors, with the hope to take the map into the future, and we've been meeting with their board next week to push that through. The key thing for the map going forward is that it forms a foundational map for the town to grow on, so we can add other artists and locations, and it can also be multi-use. So if anybody at the town has any ideas as to how you might use it beyond the current use, you are free to contact John. He'd be happy to accommodate you. We also engaged people like Hella Sandberg, who is a well-known, I call her the doyen of arts and culture in the town, who provided us with some of the history. And we also did work with Tanya in Parks and Recs, who was able to provide us with some of the data sources, trying to find out where the artists live. So that tells a little bit about that and the map itself. And what we ended up doing is probably from beginning to end was a 6-week process, from its initial concept to actually having it printed and on the street. And as you can see by the example in front of you, it's a high quality product with a very, very creative approach to the town. And thanks to all our sponsors and also to our advertisers. So that's really the map. So I want to go back to my original opening comment about the interest for the arts and the passion for arts in Collingwood, and just talk about the importance, or the important point that it brought to me was the fact that the town itself, right, does not have a passion for the arts. And I was shocked in that, in the sense that I kept hearing that we were a hockey town. And I kept saying, why can't we be both, right? Why can't we be a hockey town and an arts town? And art is a pillar. Art and culture is a pillar of any tourism initiative in any town that you go to, anywhere in the world. It's fundamental to driving revenue and growing your tax base. It's fundamental as far as putting an ROI together to pay for the infrastructure needed to support that. And so somebody told me before I came in that I have to have an ask. Whenever you come in front of council, you have to have an ask. So my ask is that two things. One, I know you don't have money in the budget, but if you could round my 2,300 up to 2,500 by putting $200 back into my kitty, that would be great, because you weren't able to when I first came to you, small one. And the bigger ask is that you make a real commitment. I think this council has an opportunity to make a change, right, to have a legacy for future residents in this town, to have a arts and culture center. And there's a lot of movement taking place at the grassroots level, which will rise up and come to you very shortly if you haven't already heard about it. So there's a need for an arts council outside of Parks and Rec, not as a subset of that, but something to lead the charge in this community. So thank you for your time, and any questions?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You still have 7 minutes to go, so
There you go.
why don't you tell us?
I told through you, Chair, to the mayor, he asked me to keep it short and sweet.
You did very well. Thank you very much, very much. And you mentioned that when you come in front of council, you always have an ask. Thank goodness this is just a committee, so we can't say yes or no. But thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee members? Councilor McLeod.
I have a question, and it's probably quite facile, but can you tell me why some of these things are purple and some are red on your key?
Well, sorry, I guess through the chair back to Councillor McLeod, the original intention was to separate advertisers from public venues and so on. It may have got a little bit lost in the artistic approach to it, but it looks nice.
Well, it's art, so it doesn't have to make any sense. Thank you. Thank you.
Great answer. Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And Don, thank you very much for the presentation and all your hard work in putting this together. It's spectacular to see this rendering showing all of the arts and culture locations in town. And as you said, there's more, and hopefully we'll be getting them on there in the future as we go forward with other iterations. I'm wondering, do you have available an electronic format that we could use to post on the town website?
Get through the chair.
Yeah.
Mayor, yes, we do have a version of that. It's just being finalized now.
Okay,
And it'll also be on the BMFA website, and we'll forward it to you as well.
that would be marvelous, thank you. And I guess just to follow up on your ask, we will be going into our discussions about how to invest the net proceeds from our recent asset sales. And one of the topics up for discussion would be the idea of creating a community foundation, which would then allow our citizens to help walk with their checkbooks and push forward larger events, and we would help to seed that in some form. And so we'll get the discussion going and make a community discussion about larger decisions like this moving forward. So I'll invite you to come back and talk to us on that.
Well, if I might respond very quickly to that, there is a group that's forming right now. We're just finalizing its charter, and with a number of key people in town involved. And what I would ask is that we can come back to council, whoever you designate, to present what our vision and mission is for that group, and find a way that we can work together collaboratively to make that come about. So, thank you.
We'll look forward to that. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Don't be running away yet, sir. There might be more. There's still 3 of us left sitting here. I told you, you have all this time. You're in front of us. Take full opportunity.
Can we talk about other things? No.
Councillor Comey?
Thank you. Question, please. So I couldn't quite follow what you said. Something to the effect of you came to the town to ask for money to contribute towards the map. Is that what you were saying? And
Yeah, my original process was to approach the town and say, here's what we're doing. And it was suggested that, well, it came about 2 ways. One was start off with the conversation around the push and pull between Simcoe Street and the town and your Ontario Street and stuff like that. And so I kind of went, I don't want to get involved in that. That's between those groups. And so I kind of reached out and said, here's what I'm doing. Could we meet? And it was suggested that we would have to go through an application process, and there wasn't funds available in the budget anymore. And I just thought, well, that's too bad. By the time we have the meetings and we put our application in and it's next year, rather than something we can move quickly on. So that's why we went the way we did.
okay, thank you for clarifying. It was very nice of you to include our library on there regardless. That's a nice touch.
Well, we got the BIA involved. It took me a while to get in to see Susan, but we finally did, and she was kind enough to come forward and as a co-sponsor, so we were happy to see that.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm actually glad to hear that your comment that you actually, they did approach it, they just asked you to fill out an application that just didn't fit the timeline rather than just being said no. So there are policies and procedures, and I'm glad that unfortunately we couldn't meet the timeline, but we were there and offering as well. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your deputation this evening. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reports and minutes of other committees and boards. 6.1, Accessibility Advisory Committee minutes, May 29th and June 26th, 2019. Collingwood Downtown BIA Board of Management minutes, June 13th, and July 11th, and the Museum Advisory Committee, May 16th, June 20th, and the Trails, May 9th, June 13th, and July 11th. Moved that the Corporate Community Services Standing Committee receive and refer the following minutes to the next regular meeting of Council. If there's anybody here that would like to speak to anything within those minutes before we vote on accepting them, please go ahead. Councillor Cohen.
Thank you. A couple items out of the BIA minutes. So the first is the minutes from June the 13th, and the first one is item 4.3. So just in case anyone's not familiar, the BIA has had some discussions about garbage collection, and I think the committee is aware of that. So I'll just read it, just to bring everyone up to speed. The board discussed that this is a county bylaw, but if the town of Collingwood have the authority to enforce garbage, they should do so. Other items discussed included looking into third-party collection services, the issue of recycling, if the BIA could bill business owners for garbage pickup, and that more communication should be circulated regarding potential fines of not following this bylaw. And what I'd just like to read to the committee now is the resolution that was passed, and that is that in response to the May 30th memo, it appears that Town of Collingwood can enforce the waste management bylaw, and we as a board request they do so. So I think we can expect some more discussion and follow-up from that. And the second item from the BIA minutes is 6.3. And that's on the topic of beautification and decorating. And I know I had another councillor approach me with some concerns, but I wanted the committee to know that the BIA has held a meeting with PRC. And so part of our minutes include the board discussed gardens in the downtown area and the potential of assuming the maintenance of them. It was agreed that more information needs to be gathered, including an inventory of the gardens, cost, maintenance, and ultimately if permission could be acquired. And I think Director Culver, I gave him a heads up that I would ask for a little follow-up for one of the items that came from this meeting, which was the tree guards along Ontario Street, and an update on painting them or repairing them or removing some of them. So Director Culver, if this would be a good spot for that update, please.
Okay. I wish I would have known about this before. Director Culver.
Through you, Chair, the plan is to remove the cages on the trees as requested by the BIA in October and November, when things are a little bit slower for our staff.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I also have a couple updates from the questions from the Trails Committee meeting minutes, and that is item 7.2 from June 13th. And Director Culver, I'd run this by you earlier as well, and that's a discussion, the Trails Committee meeting minutes with regard to a discussion occurred regarding the capital list and funds from River Trail from 2019 that did not get spent. Parks Manager Martin advised that the approved 2019 budget is $180,000, $100,000 for the River Trail widening, and $80,000 from the OMCC grant that is to be spent on cycling initiatives. Could you expand a bit on that, Director Culver?
Director Culver.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So the 7.2 item was referring to a discussion around the River Trail upgrade, which was a project that was initially projected in 2018, but the tender couldn't be released until late that year, so the project had to be rebudgeted in 2019. So in other words, the fund went unspent in 2018 and was reapproved by council for 2019. The OMCC funds were received when our grant submission was approved, and they're continuing. Right now, they're funding the cycle plan because every other element that would be approved under the OMCC has to be following a cycle plan. So first step was to get a cycle plan completed. We'll be giving you the executive update tonight and presenting the final plan in October.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Comey.
And the Trails minutes from Thursday, July 11th, item 4.4. It says here that counter data, most recent information. Co-chair Murray Knowles presented the committee with a graph of the trail usage for the first half of 2019. The committee commented on the high numbers indicating the use of the trail system. Mr. Chair, I was wondering if you could request that data be shared with committee from the Trails Committee. It sounds really positive.
Okay, thank you. I'll do that at a later time tonight, and we'll get the answer back for the next meeting. Any other comments? Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was looking at the minutes from the Museum Advisory Committee of Thursday, June 20, 2019, and item 9.3 about the operating hours for the museum changing. I know that started back in July, but I had a few residents asking me questions about the hours of operation. Where could they find that information?
Director Culver.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the hours are available on the website as well as at the museums.
Good, thank you. And just to tug at the thread that Councillor Comey raised about beautification, I've had a number of residents comment to me about the flowers this year. They're quite spectacular, and I'm admiring them outside of Town Hall every day with the purple lupins popping up into my window, so it's great to see, and congratulations to Director or Manager Martin when you were and your staff for that, because it's been beautiful to see the flowers out and along First Street and here on Ontario Street. They look spectacular.
Thank you. Just to echo the mayor's, I get to work every morning at about 6:30, and I see your staff out there in front of my shop watering away, very focused, and they work very, 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 very hard. And sometimes I do take them a little treat out and give them some iced coffee because they work very hard. So thank you very much. Okay, so all those in favor of the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee receiving and referring the following minutes to the next regular meeting? All those in favor? Oh, can I get a mover? Moved by Mayor Saunderson, seconded by Councillor Berman. All those in favor? Excellent. Okay, just before we get into a fantastic staff report, Clerk Almus, can we just quickly, it's been a bit of a long summer maybe, and we just need an update. Can we get some communication, a meeting and communication protocol at the committee level, please? Just an understanding for council and the committee members of how questions will be asked at the committee level and the communication moving forward.
Certainly through the chair to members of the committee and department heads and the public. So proper meeting procedure for requesting questions are generally they go through the chair, and the chair directs them to the appropriate individual for response. As for communications that occur following a meeting, so the mayor, the deputy mayor act on behalf of council whenever matters are before council and decide for on behalf of council. The communications protocol for matters that have been dealt with through the standing committee, they're under the ownership of the chair or the vice chair for the standing committee until they've been vetted and they're before council, and then once council receives them and it's under debate or has been decided at council, then it becomes the mayor's to act as a spokesperson from that perspective. Is that what you're looking to elaborate on?
Yeah, no, exactly. Just so any questions coming through at the committee level, proper etiquette should be that the chair and the vice chair should be copied in on those questions. So when it comes to the committee, we look like we know what we're doing.
Certainly. So within the procedural bylaw for various meetings, we request that if there's any questions that a member of the committee might have, that they're vetted through the appropriate department in advance, so there's no surprises. But it's good etiquette if there's an opportunity to let the chair know. But it is a requirement or a part of the procedural bylaw that if a concern does come forward, that it's nice that the appropriate staff member is notified in advance.
Thank you very much for the clarification. On to the great news of the night. Staff report 7.1, P 2019-43, application for the Simcoe County 2019 Economic Development Funding Program to develop the implementation plan accelerator in Collingwood. Director Redlow.
Good evening, Chair Madigan and members of the Standing Committee. I thought it might be appropriate for me to present just a couple of slides just to overview the staff report. It is a rather extensive staff report, 9-10 pages plus a bunch of appendices. So in just a couple of slides, I wanted to just review the general intent and context of the staff report and the recommendation. First of all, what is this all about? It's about building a business accelerator in Collingwood. Lots of people go, what is a business accelerator? Well, it's ultimately a program that helps entrepreneurs and their companies become established economic contributors in Collingwood, and importantly, elevates the chance of their success. Secondly, it actually increases the town's ability to attract outside investment through a distinctive business support system. Now, this didn't just come out of nowhere. It actually started off, certainly at the Business Development Center, we've been hearing ideas and suggestions for several years, but it wasn't until the presentation done by Gillian Fairley from the Center for Business and Economic Development, one of the partners at the Business Development Center, that we really had a chance to get a better glimpse at what a business accelerator could look like in Collingwood. And as a result, Council made a motion requesting that staff prepare a staff report to further investigate the implementation of an accelerator program, including the required resources. That is what I'm here to do today. There's a little bit more of an extensive history in terms of the origins of this actual request and recommendation. First of all, the overall entrepreneurship energy that exists here. As you well know, over the last 4 years, we've been ranked several times in the top 10. In fact, we're number 1 in Ontario just this past year. So there is lots of entrepreneurship energy, and we're starting to get recognized for it. As part of that, we've had a number of the businesses, some of their investors coming to us going, I wish there was a place that you could really inject a quickened approach to how businesses can take their products to market, how they can embed it here. And that's not saying the Business Development Center isn't doing a good job, but they offer the basic business services that entrepreneurs and growth businesses require. An accelerator, as the name implies, injects an extra hyper-focused element to the program. We've also had feedback from different centers of excellence for entrepreneurship, including Communitech, if you will, the ignition point for Kitchener-Waterloo becoming such a great place for entrepreneurship, particularly in the technology sector. Certainly the presentation in June by Gillian was a huge stepping stone, as was the release in June by Simcoe County of the 2019 Economic Development Fund, which gives municipalities up to $50,000 they can apply for an economic development project. And last but not least, after the presentation in June, we had a private sector investor come to us and say, if you get this going before the end of June, at least starting to work on it, I've got some money for you. More on that a bit later. Next slide, please. So how can a business accelerator work? Well, ultimately, it's about entrepreneurs applying to be part of a time-bound program. In this case, we're saying, let's say 6 months. We still have to validate that. But a 6-month program during which they receive greater funding options. And we certainly have funding options at the Business Development Center, but they go up to $250,000, $350,000. We're talking about a slightly bigger amount in terms of funding options and some different flexibilities because those are loans, some of the larger ones, as opposed to true injections into the company. It's also about being part of a hyper-focused, fast-paced program that literally says you have a start and you have a finish, and within that time, we want a plan that will take you to the market and help you grow. It's also about having short-term collaborative space where you can work with your team, you can work with other partners, you can work with other supporting experts to make it happen. It's about mentorship and professional advice that we would bring into this accelerator that would make it far easier for them to actually make the decisions they need to in a hyper-complex, hyper-fast world. And last but not least, it would include a graduation program to help them find a place, embed them within the economic quilt work of Collingwood. so that we can actually see the returns on the investments in an accelerator. So how do we move forward? Next slide. What we are recommending is developing a validation plan for a program that accelerates the time it takes a company to go from a moderate success to a high growth leader. Right? We need a plan. We've seen a presentation in June that said, look, there's an opportunity here. We spent the last 2 months working on what would that take to actually build that plan, find the partners, figure out the funding model, so on and so on. Most importantly, actually figure out what programming needs to be there to actually work for these companies. As you can see in the staff report, we outlined 4 different options. One is to reallocate existing resources at the Business Development Center to this project. So it basically says existing budget, existing resources, let's move, deprioritize some projects, put all our efforts into this. We certainly have a lot of expertise at the Business Development Center, but that would mean making some choices. We could partner with other accelerators that are starting up in Grey, Bruce, and Simcoe County. But as you can imagine, do we get the fair share of focus in that kind of situation? Might be a bit of a challenge. The town could hire a consultant for the project, and that would certainly place a lot of control on where this consultant goes. But it would also place a challenge in that we'd be setting a precedent for, if you will, the public sector leading this effort when our success models say what you want is a private-public partnership, even better, a private partnership that's leading the system. Which is where the 4th option really comes into context. And that's about partnering with a specialized not-for-profit organization that has an understanding of what's required from a business standpoint and can lead this project in partnership with the town and other private and public sector partners. As you can imagine, that's the one that we're in fact recommending as the lead option for doing this. And just for context, what we're asking for is to find the funds and resources that would be led by this independent organization. I'll jump right to the chase. It is the Center for Business and Economic Development, which is a partner at the Business Development Center, to have a consultant work on 4 key elements: a detailed business plan and funding model, developing the programming and partnerships required to deliver that, validating the best approach to organize this program, because in fact a number of different options, and last but not least, identifying a physical space and the requirements for that space. If we go to the next slide, if we were to keep it really simple, there are 5 key things this consultant would be bringing back to council as an interim report back to council, ultimately for a final report within about a 12-month period. And it would be about validating the ideal approach, engaging the right stakeholders, and I included just a quick snapshot of a slide that was presented back at the beginning of June by Jillian that highlights some of the variety of stakeholders that would be required to engage with for success. It would be about preparing a detailed private-to-public sustainable costing and funding model. It would be about establishing a not-for-profit governance structure, and this is something that we've seen be a critical success factor, is actually setting up an independent not-for-profit that manages the accelerator. And last but not least, identifying the physical space needed for the accelerator. Next slide. So just for conceptual purposes, what could an accelerator like this look like? And this is once again just a basic concept that's in front of you. This is going to work. So we've worked with a number of different groups, and in fact there's highlighted in the original white paper that was done by the Center for Business and Economic Development. We suspect about 8,000 square feet would be required for this accelerator. It includes small collaboration pods where people can come in there, work together. It would also have large and small presentation areas, such as an area over here that would have flexible space. In this case, even the kitchen becomes a presentation area where you can enjoy beverages and food while the presentation is going on. We're also suggesting that as an opportunity would be to actually house the Business Development Center partners in there as a new location for the Business Development Center. There would also be space for the Business Accelerator companies and also space for other supporting organizations. Colleges, universities, lawyers, accountants that may rent that space to be part of the energy. And most importantly, it needs to be a space that is designed to celebrate and reflect the local, natural, and cultural power of place that we've got here in Collingwood. That's just a conceptual drawing of what it could look like: a fireside lounge, kitchen area where you could have some of the meetings, and really make sure that we can stand up and compete with other great accelerators, not only in Ontario, in Canada, and ultimately North America. last slide is the recommendation that you see before you on the staff report. We are asking for a motion to apply for the $50,000 Simcoe County 2019 Economic Development Fund program. And second of all, if successful, we're asking to direct staff to enter into a partnership with the Center for Business and Economic Development to, first of all, hire this consultant, and second of all, direct county funds to this project to become co-funders in this initiative. There are three key issues I want to highlight that are important considerations. One is time urgency. We've received a letter from a private sector partner who is prepared to invest up to $30,000 in this project if we have an accelerator advisor, consultant hired and started by the end of 2019. The second piece is the Simcoe County Economic Development Fund. In order for us to be able to meet that timeline requires us to actually be submitting a request this week. So there's certain timelines that are before us that require us to go through and be fairly, if you will, conscious of the timelines that are before us. As you can imagine, on the Simcoe County Fund, you may be wondering why here at the beginning of September do we need to have the applications in so quickly. Before they go through their various committees and it gets to council, believe it or not, it's not until December when the funds would actually get approved under this timeline. The second piece to consider are the risk management components that we've built into this plan, which include making sure that there's a third party managing this, that's an organization that we've worked with in the past, which we have with the Center for Business and Economic Development, that we are part of the criteria that are developed for hiring the consultant, that the selection is based on all funding partners being collaborative approvers, if you will, of that there are time-bound quarterly consultant reports to make sure that progress is happening in a timely manner, that there is a gated funding release of the Simcoe County funds, that there are monthly funding partner meetings of which we would be a part of, and that there would also be council engagement pre-implementation of any of the recommendations and plans put forward by the consultant. Last but not least, I want to make sure that we recognize a strong stakeholder engagement that we've already had for this initiative. We have representatives from the Center for Business and Economic Development in the audience. We have Georgian College here representing the whole college, and includes a letter of support from the president of Georgian College. We also have two tech cluster companies here, Greenland and Switch Video. And we also have letters of support from the hospital, who is eager to explore some health innovation opportunities. And we also have a letter of support from the private funder included as part of the staff report. So I want to call out their support has been wonderful, and certainly recognize the importance of private-public partnership for this to be successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And you owe Don Brummett 2 minutes and 18 seconds, but that's all right. Before you go any further, is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak to this? All good news and smiles. Excellent. All right, so the motion is, go back, that the Corporate and Community Services Standing Committee receive and refer the following recommendations to the regular meeting of council. Staff recommendation that staff report P 2019-43 be received and council direct staff to apply for the Simcoe County 2019 Economic Development Funding Program, which offers communities up to $50,000 to advance economic development before its deadline of November 5th, 2019. And further, that in the event the town is successful in securing County Council approval for the Simcoe County 2019 Economic Development Funding Program application, council directs staff to enter into a partnership with the Center for Business and Economic Development, CBED, to hire a consultant to investigate and develop a plan for the program that would accelerate the time it takes for a company to go from moderate success to a high growth leader. Work in collaboration with the CBED to define the consultant's deliverables, RFP evaluation criteria, and sit on the selection committee. Direct $25,000 from the county funds to the CBED in December 2019, contributing to a larger pool of funds being raised by the CBED to hire the consultant, and direct $25,000 from the county funds to CBED in March 2020 based on the consultant achieving key deliverables within the first 3 months. Work with the CBED to present to council the business plan, funding, and organizational model. Do I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Berman, seconded by Mayor Saunderson. So just before we go to questions from the committee, I have a question. So I'm going to direct it to the mayor, but I'm going to do it through a comment. So when you said this week, Mayor Saunderson, because you are a representative on this committee that goes to county and you're the mayor of our town, could you clarify, inform us from the county perspective of why it is vitally important to get a strong endorsement from this committee tonight?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Chair. I guess to back up a little bit, and Martin knows this history, going back to the beginning of the 2015 County Council session, the county undertook to start, oh, it might even predated that, actually it helped to establish our Business Development Center, $50,000 grants on an annual basis to municipalities that provided suitable projects to advance economic development in the community, and that could be anything from business development to tourism development to just economic development and marketing initiatives. And that would initially start off as a 2-year program, and it was to be grandfathered out after 2 years. After 2 years, we continued it on a declining balance basis, and because of the success of that program, not only in establishing things like the Business Development Center here in Collingwood, there was also regional initiatives which generated a lot of interest throughout the municipalities. So that this year, when the opportunity came to extend that program yet again, there was a lot of support for that amongst the County Council. Again, we become more strategic in how these things are going to be evaluated, and so with 5 or 6 years now of that funding in one form or another under our belts, we are looking at doing it, but again, we've sort of upped the bar, I think, to make sure that the programs that do get through have legs and will yield good results. So I think that was approved in late spring before the summer recess. So now the word is getting out there, and as always in some of these municipal sector situations, it's a bit of hurry up and wait. So we are coming up against a deadline. The applications have to be in for consideration, and the package is well in order, I think, with the letters of support and Gillian's legwork and then Martin's work to refine it. So this presents a great opportunity for us. The applications have to be in by next Friday. We have talked, my understanding is through the clerk, that we have talked to the county, and that they will give us an extension to Monday, because our council meeting is next Monday, to the 16th, to allow us to have the bylaw in place to move forward with that. And then once all the applications are received, then the Economic Development Committee, with staff's assistance, will go through and decisions will be made on December 3rd. So it is a time-limited opportunity, and as I said, I think it's because of the evolution of the program, it's becoming a little more strategic, and they've raised the bar this year to make sure that the programs that do go through are ones that have very strong possibility of success.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from other committee members? Councillor MacLeod.
I have several through you, Mr. Chair. So one of the notes that I made to myself when Ms. Fairley was here to see us in June was that the accelerator would cost somewhere around $100,000 from the town. Is this $50,000 connected to that in any way?
Through you, Chair. The $100,000, I believe, and certainly I can stand corrected, was how much it would be to hire the consultant to actually build the business plan out. That continues to be the budget, and with this we are recommending that $50,000 be used towards that, so that we become major funders, if you will, co-funders of that consultant. How much the actual accelerator will cost to build and so on, that's exactly why we need this consultant to sit down and go, so what's it going to be? What's interesting is a number of stakeholders in the community have actually been exploring different accelerator models. And there are some accelerator models that it takes them 5 years to become self-sufficient. There are others that within the first year are self-sufficient. So that's exactly what we want this consultant to do, is how do we get to a self-sufficiency model as quickly as possible? And there are ways of doing it, but that's why we need to get this consultant in place so we can actually figure out what that looks like.
So a follow-up, Mr. Chair, so Ms. Fairley said that it was $100,000 and we're now, you're suggesting that we apply to the county for the 50 and an angel has come forward with an offer of 30. So does that mean that at this point the town is on the hook for 20? Is my math correct though, or is that $100,000 and Ms. Fairley was talking about an entirely different thing?
Through you, Chair.
Yes.
So the Centre for Business and Economic Development has also approved another $10,000 to contribute to that. So in theory, we're $10,000 short, and that's something where we would be working with the Centre for Business and Economic Development to make sure that we find that additional funding. There's some grants out there, some other sources that we know of. At this point, there's certainly no expectation that the town would be having to, fill that gap. That's something that as partners, we'd be working with the Centre for Business and Economic Development to approach that, but it's also one of the reasons why option D is such a favored option, because it provides a bit more of a broader team that can go out there and source the funds, as opposed to leaving the town being the only one standing there having to figure out how to fund things.
And another follow-up, Mr.
Yep.
Chair. So if this $50,000 at the county, although according to the mayor, things are going to be, they seem to be pretty, if they're extending deadlines and doing nice things, perhaps that's a signal. However, if the door gets slammed by the county and they say, yeah, thanks, no, are you going to be coming back to us looking for the 50 that you didn't get from the county?
Through you, Chair, I don't think it would be something where we'd be coming back to council saying, look, we need an unexpected fund of $50,000 to just come out of the air. I think the reality is that we would have to sit down and go, is that something we build into the 2020 budget? Are there some other options for funding? Are there some other ways that we can fund that gap? So the last thing we want to do is all of a sudden burden the council with an unexpected request of $50,000. And that's why, as you'll note in the staff report, we've been clear in saying until those funds are available and until the Centre for Business and Economic Development feels comfortable with going and hiring that manager, they're not going to move on hiring that manager. As you well know, this organization is a very well recognized, successful organization with a strong board of directors to ensure fiscal responsibilities are met.
So just to clarify through you,
Yes.
Mr. Chair, so if the county doesn't come through with the grant that we're seeking to give you permission to ask for, this project is not happening. Is that what you're telling me?
Through your chair, I would say it's just not happening necessarily on the timeline that we'd like it to happen under. It's more a matter of going, okay, let's regroup and figure out how differently we can approach it, as it is we're coming close to the 2020 budgeting period. So that could be one option. Once again, there's a number of grants and so on that are out there. So I don't think it would be we're not doing this project, rather just a matter of we just got to wait a little bit longer before we get ourselves organized.
And final one, Mr. Chair, if it is that the county says no, what happens to the $30,000 from your angel?
Through you, Chair, that's something that we'd have to ask the investor.
Terrific.
It
Those
goes
are-
back to heaven.
Thank
But-
you very much for indulging me, Mr. Chair.
But when our mayor goes and says the number one entrepreneur in Ontario, and him being the best mayor in Simcoe County, this is an easy sell for them to get a great news story out of the gem of Southern Georgian Bay when that happens. Any other questions or comments? Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, so just picking up on some of the questions that Councillor McLeod asked, essentially, Martin, what you've come to us with is a proposal to pursue hiring a consultant to look at the business model to actually quantify what this accelerator would look like, how it would be funded, possibilities to fund it, and what the total cost would be to push it down the road. So this $100,000 is really, we're looking at doing the business plan to see if it's viable, feasible, and doable.
Through you, Chair, yes, that'd be correct, Mayor Saunderson. I would actually add a extra comment to that. This consultant isn't to come back with a 100-page report saying, here's what you should be doing. There's an actionable component to that. Certainly the first 6 months would be based on doing an analysis, validating the ideas and the plans, see what could work. The second part would be actually creating those core stakeholder partnerships, setting up the not-for-profit organization, identifying potential locations. So it'll be very much action-oriented, so that at the end of that 12-month term, we are in a position where we know exactly what we need to do, and hopefully have identified the funds as well for how we can actually get this in place. A hopeful world would be, could we get it in place as early as 2021? I'm just asking the question. I think it's something that we'd have to ask the consultant as well, but I can't stress enough how much I know all of the stakeholders are committed to making sure it's a very action-oriented consultant, and hence all of the different comments around making sure we have quarterly updates in terms of how they're progressing versus the actual deliverables that are agreed upon.
And just to follow up, Dan, I think you jumped on me, ahead of me, that which is good, and is that we're going to have a roadmap with milestones and benchmarks and a timeline and potential cost estimates, but how we move forward with this initiative.
Through you, Chair, absolutely, that is what we need to make sure this consultant delivers, and I know the organizations like Center for Business and Economic Development are looking for that same kind of roadmap, and then some.
And I know you've given us a list, and I've been to Communitech twice, and the rendering you have up there is actually quite accurate to what I've seen in that building, and it's a beehive of activity. So on top of Communitech, you've also listed the Innovation Factory in the City of Hamilton, Innovate Kingston in Kingston, and Invest Ottawa. We have other programs in larger scales in Toronto. But my observation when we went to Communitech and also in a visit with the University of Guelph is that there's a number of universities, as President Marilyn West has pointed out in her letter. They have their own business development, and that they're using similar type concepts within the own university to attract investment to give their students projects legs. And I know that Kitchener, University of Laurier, and the University of Waterloo are tied in with similar programs. University of Guelph is trying to do something similar. And not only, I guess my question really is, have we had discussions with other universities looking at potential alignments with the potential hub here?
Through you, Chair, we have, but they've been very conceptual. And Communitech has even come back to us and said, what's your plan? What do you want to stand for? Well, how do you want to be different as an accelerator? And we can certainly put together a nice PowerPoint slide, but at the end of the day, it's no different than pitching a business. They want to know if they're going to partner with us and invest in Collingwood, they want to know what they're going to be getting for it. And certainly that's something that we're hoping that with this advisor, with this consultant, we can have that pitch, if you will, so that we can go out there and find the right universities, colleges to partner with, because certainly that is a success model that we've seen. Interestingly, what we've also seen is accelerators that necessarily just lock themselves in with one partner tend to be a little bit limited longer term. Those that are successful actually have multiple partnerships with different colleges and universities because they recognize that each brings a unique aspect to the overall ecosystem that accelerator presents.
Those are my questions. I guess as a comment, I certainly see this as a wonderful opportunity to look and find out what we can do. Just following up on the recent announcement from Maclean's magazine that we're the 22nd most desirable community in Canada to live in. 2/3 of our residents live and work in Collingwood, which I think really sets us apart from many municipalities our size. If you go down the road to Newtek, which was 5th in the list, 45% of their population drives out of town every day to go find work. So to me, the idea of being able to create with our impending growth, jobs to give our residents the circular economy here, and to be growing the tech end and the gray matter, the knowledge-based economy, I think presents a wonderful opportunity. So I'm certainly in favor of pushing this forward and moving forward to get the consultant to find out what the roadmap forward is on this. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for the report. I think it was well done, and I'm very excited. If Communitech wants to know what they're going to get out of Collingwood, they're going to get the #1 entrepreneur in Ontario, probably the most successful downtown in Ontario of a town our size, best cycling plan in Ontario. We got through that with just, and 5 of the best engineering firms that not only Ontario but Canada has to offer. So this can be really become the tech up north. these CEOs and executives have been coming here for 20 years for all the natural amenities, so why don't they bring their businesses here? So thank you very much for all your hard work, and thank you to Joanne Bowden and the Center for Business for putting in $10,000. I know the mayor's going to bring back 50, and then that just leaves us 10 shy. So thank you. It's nice to see the BIA here in the audience. $10,000. Nice to see the BIA here in the audience. No pressure, you know, just join a winning team.
Duly noted.
I think the Colts are 2-0. Well, I don't know. You just maybe want to jump on board. Who knows? Continue the excitement. 7.3. Oh, we need to vote on that. Well, that's just a unanimous vote, but we have a mover and seconder. So all those in favor? Excellent. Thank you very much. I get excited. I'm excited about Wendy's report, so I apologize for jumping forward. Okay, 7.2, Municipal Cycle Plan, Executive Summary Presentation by Ms. Martin, Manager of Parks.
Dr. Calder, did you want to do some opening statements?
You want to introduce this, Dean?
If I could, please.
Yes, of course.
I need to recognize up front that the cycling plan has been a long time coming. We've been over a year at it, and you know, by way of explanation, I was explaining to the mayor earlier, and I've explained to some others. One of the things we're coming to terms with, and we came to terms with it through the process of developing the PRC master plan, is that we have a dearth of policy. We have a lot of assets and a lot of amenities and a lot of facilities, but we don't have a lot of policy that guides these. As we go about building something like a cycling plan with a consultant there reaching out and saying, so what are the drivers, you know, how are we going to sharpen the spear? And we have to realize that we weren't quite there yet. So it took longer than we thought, because we basically are starting somewhat from scratch in developing a policy purpose for our trails and cycle infrastructure. So I'll let Wendy carry on with the executive summary. This is, we wanted to get it to you this month. The timing just didn't work out, but we thought at the very least we owed an executive summary, and then in October we'll be back with the full plan.
Thank you very much.
Excellent. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm going to provide a brief synopsis of the executive summary of the cycling plan for the town of Collingwood. So the town of Collingwood cycling plan will provide a long-term vision, strategy, and implementation plan to develop, strengthen, and support a cycling culture in Collingwood. So the plan provides recommendations for policies, programs, and facilities needed to help make cycling an attractive everyday option for residents with various abilities ranging in age from 8 to 80 years old. So the cycling plan identifies primary east-west and north-south corridors. For example, east-west includes the Harbourview Trail, 3rd Street, Ontario Street, 6th Street, and then Poplar Side Road, Hamilton Drain Trail. And examples for north-south include High Street, Maple Street and Pine Street, St. Marie Street, and the Train Trail. These routes were chosen based on the following route selection criteria. So they be connected and integrated, they be accessible, context sensitive and cost effective, safe and comfortable, and interesting and enjoyable. These criteria led staff to focus on routes that prioritize existing off-road routes over on-road facilities in instances where the option existed. While this may detract from the ease and speed of cycling for more confident users, safety and implementation considerations took precedence. So this is a little bit different than cities that have cycling plans, because they tend to focus on-road to get people through. Whereas we felt it was very important to provide safe facilities for cycling within our community. Discussions with serious cyclists and the cycling clubs is they won't cycle on our roads because they are so busy, like the Highway 26 and those type of roads. So that's why we felt this plan would be very, it would be very important to focus on existing infrastructure that we have off-road. So two main categories of facilities for the network are shared facilities. So we have shared use lands, paved shoulders, and bike priority streets. And then another category of a facility is a separated facility, so bike lanes and trails. The plan will present an implementation plan of 0 to 5 years and 5 to 10 years. And these were prioritized by the following criteria. So linking to capital projects by scheduled network improvements concurrently with planned roadway projects. So whenever a road is getting upgraded, we'd love to jump on board and include that cycling infrastructure right away at the planning stage. Closing gaps in the network, especially where ones that create a safety risk or cause uncomfortable actions for the cyclists. Reallocate space where possible to develop bike lanes through lane reallocation and repainting of pavement markings. Establish a network by completing continuous north-south and east-west connections. Respond to demand by focusing on areas with higher existing or projected cyclist volumes. And achieving quick wins by implementing short-duration, cost-effective measures first. So some of the key recommendations that will be coming out of the cycling plan include adopting the proposed cycling network and guidelines associated with providing a safe network, introducing guidelines for the provision of adequate, well-designed bike parking, as well as end-of-trip amenities, establishing a Trails and Active Transportation Committee, which includes staff from Parks, Engineering, and a coordinator of community well-being and inclusion, and on a yearly basis, assess the proposed phasing and funding of the cycling facility improvements, as well as engaging the community through various means of outreach. So those are just some of the key recommendations. There'll be many more that will come out of the report. And again, as Director Culver mentioned, the final report will be presented to Council in October. So we're very excited to have this almost completed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any questions from the public in regards to this executive summary? Any questions from committee? Thank you very much. Oh,
You know
Councillor.
I have a question.
well, maybe one.
Ms. Martin, you mentioned 3rd Street and I just missed what you said. Would you mind repeating what it is that you had to say regarding 3rd Street towards the very beginning of your
Yes,
presentation?
it was part of the east-west route, so 3rd Street / Ontario Street. So heading from between High and the Pretty Wood Parkway, making that one of the routes.
Thank you.
Excellent. See, that was an easy one.
It was a great question. Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. So Wendy, thank you for that. And would there be an emphasis on trying to connect municipal facilities, like getting people to Central Park, to the arena, to the swimming pool, finding safe routes to get people to and from municipal facilities?
Yes, so through Mr. Chair, there will be, yes, definitely links that will highlight to the municipal facilities and end-of-trip amenities. Those will be focused as well, close to municipal facilities that can support those amenities, as well as bike parking, that type of thing. Yeah.
Yes. Director Culver.
If I could just add to
Yes.
Mr. Chair that this, going back to the OMCC funding that was mentioned earlier, this is one of the great things about the way the funding rolled out is it required you to have this master plan, but once you have the master plan, it guides you in a lot of these types of activities. So wayfinding is something we identified early on as potential for using the OMCC funding, which would help guide people to those specific locations. So once we have the plan in place, once we've adopted the recommendations, we actually have some funding from the OMCC to apply and get the ball moving right away.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Moving along, department updates / discussions. 8.1, Harborview Boardwalk Update. Director Culver. Yes, please. Yeah. So this is an exciting time, no cane, and it must be good news because you're getting up to talk and you're all smiles. So I'm excited for this update.
I'm still stiff, just so you know. Actually, I'll ask Adam. I dropped into the presentation folder. There you go. So, so again, I'm going to back up a little bit to the beginning of this. So in May of 2018, the boardwalk was burned by arson, and we all know the story there. We're not happy about it, and I wish we could have turned around and fixed it right away. But because we didn't, we had another way to get through that part of the trail. We couldn't constitute it as an emergency, so therefore we couldn't jump on the boardwalk replacement without at least trying to get insurance involved or other things. The insurance program took a longer than we hoped to come about, but finally it did, and obviously we're grateful because their insurance, the insurance will cover about $66,000 of this bill. We had a donor who came up after the fact and asked if we would partner with them on replacing the boardwalk that extends into the Western Harbour, and he offered $100,000, which means that based on the estimate we received, we would only be on the hook for about $70,000. And because we really think it's a good idea, through the engineering assessment, the stairs and ramp on the west end were identified as being in poor condition. We're allocating roughly $5,000 to replace and repair those. So the total we'd be looking at would be about $73,159 based on the estimate. Now the estimate came about after having to basically redesign the boardwalk from scratch. We had no drawings from the original boardwalk. We had no structural paper that showed us how it was built or what engineering principles were used. So that had to be all done by scratch, which is kind of what took so long this summer to get a structural construction drawings. But we're ready now to basically get started on fixing up the fire damage section and moving on the West Harbour, which was approved by council, subject to the donor still being involved. And the only thing left to do is make a determination about the savings. Now, there was indication that the savings would go toward the Hen and Chicken Trail. We would suggest that this remains as savings in this budget year, because the Hen and Chicken Trail is a project, and we believe that it requires a fulsome approach. And there really is not time to get it done in this budget year anyway. So we believe that we should take this savings and move forward to council with the 2020 budget, make a full budget proposal, and get that fixed in 2020. That's my presentation.
Super presentation. Anybody from the public like to speak to Director Culver's presentation? Mr. Knowles, come on up. Please, come on up.
Just a question, I guess.
Murray, can you?
Boy, you want me up?
Yes, please. There's thousands, tens of thousands of people watching at home.
Oh, is that right?
So introduce yourself and ask away.
Murray Knowles, I'm one of the co-chairs of the Trails Committee here at Trails Advisory Committee and Councillor in Collingwood. Just really have a question concerning the savings, and appreciate that it would be dedicated towards the Hen and Chicken Boardwalk. My question would be, is there some way we can get the engineering work done this year so that when we start early in the year, we can start, as opposed to having to go through the engineering work and the tender work and everything, and before you know it, we're into October or September again before we're actually physically doing work out there on the particular trip.
Director Culver, I see a positive nod of the head, so I'm going to you.
Sorry, and I probably I didn't finish or wasn't clear anyway, but yeah, no, that would be our intention. Would be to begin the work on things like engineering and permitting that would allow us to proceed in 2020. We have budget for things like that.
Wonderful. So what you're saying is when the snow clears, they can get to work.
I'm not making any promises about anything, but that would be our intention.
Well, okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from the public? Come on up, sir. Introduce yourself.
My name is Bob Miller. I'm also on the Trails Committee. I take exception to the statement in the Trails Plan that it's only to 80-year-olds.
Well played, sir. Well played. Anybody else from the committee like to come up and speak? Mr. Burley? Mr. Christie? That was a mic drop moment, so you're going to give that to him and just carry through. God bless you guys. Any questions or comments from the committee? Councillor McLeod.
I know, surprising. Thank you for your presentation, Director Culver. I want to ask a little bit about what is happening regarding the West Harbour, because I remember when this was first proposed and this donation was being brought to us, there was some talk about redesigning the little gazebo. And where are we with that, please?
So through you, Chair, so the gazebo definitely will change. We'd be removing it. It's in pretty poor condition right now. It's staff's recommendation that it doesn't have a roof anymore because that's a vandalism issue as well as kind of a hazard. Through the waterfront master plan, there was a conceptual design presented which showed a big round flat deck. And we've taken a look at that, and actually that's the direction we're moving in, that it would allow, the design in the waterfront master plan was not accessible by nature. It didn't provide for wheelchair access, so we have to modify it to some extent, but that would be generally that would be the design we're going after in the Western Harbour. We'd also be taking notes from our reconstruction of the boardwalk that goes east and west from the labyrinth to the corner. And we dropped that down and put it closer to the vegetation. So we'd be looking to do a similar idea using helical piles like we did then to basically bring it down as close to the marshland as we possibly can. The donor's interest is in having this become a site for education on the ecosystems and environment, and so this will all help with that.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We've had seen, as I'm sure you know, much to our chagrin, rising water levels in the lake. Is there provision in this design to accommodate? Like, are we going to float this thing, or because if we have much more rising waters in the lake, this platform is going to be kind of wet. Do you think?
Through you, Chair. This is a really, really good question, and it's been the topic of 2019. If I had the year of Mother Nature, I would tell you exactly what we're going to do, but we're going to work with statistical evidence and the best engineering that we can to make sure that it's elevated from the water while still being somewhat close to the water. I can't answer that question with detail at this moment, but totally get what you're saying, and it is a factor of everything we're doing, from harbor dockage through to every trail near the water that we're building.
Just two more, I swear.
All right.
Through you, Mr. Chair, too, Director Culver. What is the plan regarding the vegetation that is in that particular area currently? So I'm imagining that this new platform is going to be where the gazebo currently is. And if I am close to the water while I'm standing there, I'm not going to be able to see much because of the rushes and so on that grow in that area. Is there a plan to control that vegetation, or do you think that the traffic of the canoes, et cetera, that will be landing will take care of that naturally?
So through you, Mr. Chair, what you're asking is if I'll be able to control the Phragmites in the Western Harbour?
Yes.
I don't have
That is exactly what I was asking.
I haven't afforded that budget, but definitely that's something that has to be taken into consideration with the design. I mean, there's a balancing point between getting what we hope will be students close to the environment and close to the ecosystems that they're trying to look at, but at the same time still allowing for good views of the harbour. We have to get it designed, and then I'll be able to answer that more clearly.
Very last one, through you, Mr. Chair. This design regarding this platform will be designed for canoes and small boats, unmotorized boats to land and launch?
So that's, through you, Chair, that's that was the desire and wish of the donor. It's something that we're having to circle back on, because in order to get the length we need to get to ensure good water access, the budget has to go up. And I don't know for sure that we'll be able to achieve that. It definitely was sort of the lofty target of the donor, but I also understand he had a primary purpose, and we can achieve the primary purpose. The secondary purpose is subject to some question and water levels.
I just thought of another one, but I'll...
Go ahead.
Do you have a timeline, Director Culver, for when we're going to be walking on this thing?
We'll get to tender as fast as possible and get it built as fast as possible. At this point, I'm very hard pressed to give deadline dates at this point.
So not a Christmas present.
In 2020.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Well, Councillor Doherty's here. She'll fight the Phragmites.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So
One more. Go ahead.
No, I don't know if you'd like me to do this now, but I have an update on our pool situation.
Please do.
I emailed
Yeah, please do.
council about, and I know that it's unscheduled on the agenda, but obviously
It's fine.
It came up late. So as council's now aware, we had an issue with at the pool, the Centennial Aquatic Center, following a project where we intended to replace the tile in the men's room, ladies' room, and the change areas. And we've had water seepage for a number of years that has come up through other parts of the facility. It was a bit of a mystery. It's always been a mystery. There's been explanations ranging from underground aquifers that we couldn't identify our source, all the way through to maybe we were applying too much water when we were using the scrubber to sanitize the facility. We now know that it's because the tile system in the men's changing room was suspended above the floor, allowing a reservoir to build underneath, which caused that water to move wherever in the building. We're really disappointed to find out that the tile, when we tore it up, was not properly installed, but we're now in a position of having to repair it. Not only that, in order to make sure that we don't have standing water elsewhere, we need to crack the floor and put in some more drains. So the total variance on the budget, which was originally at $144,970, is about $32,500. So about a 20% variance, and which means that we're going to be coming to council on Monday this following week asking for permission to extend the budget that far.
Okay, so I don't think you understand what committee you're at. This is the good news committee. Okay, within that update, is there any recourse from the builder through negligence that it wasn't done correctly, that we as a municipality can go back on them?
So through you, Chair, we're outside the warranty period. However, we've reached out to the builder and indicated that we find the work to not be of good quality, and we have not yet received a response, but we hope to.
So warranties apply to good work, but the word negligence applies to bad work. So that was my question. So the recourse, so we will be awaiting their reply. Excellent, excellent. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Mayor Saunderson?
Yes, I know this is going to come back on Monday, and I don't know if you have the information now, but I will be asking on Monday. I'd like to know, in the time that we've had the pool facility open, the extent, because I know there's been a number of other issues that have arisen out of the workmanship, and I'll be asking for you to bring it back next time, please, Dean, what the total cost of those unscheduled maintenance and repairs have been over the time.
So through you, Chair, if I may, I'd like to reserve that data until because we'd like to have some time to sort of qualify what is considered a workmanship concern versus other concerns. I feel like we do have numbers, we have been working on it, and I do know that you want that answer, and by Monday we'll have it. I just don't have it right now.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, so I think what the mayor's asking for is not through negligence, just the total repair number, not through workmanship or not, just what it's cost us to.
Well, we've had some unscheduled repairs,
Yeah.
like replacing the pool, the hot pile from the fiberglass tank to the tile tank, and some work around the floors and replacing because there was some mold issues as well. So that I'm literally looking at unscheduled maintenance repairs that have had to take place.
Yeah, and if
Is
it's
that
okay, I'll have that Monday.
Awesome, thank you. Councillor Comey?
Oh, thank you. Director Culver, I don't have your email open in front of me about the pool, but I remember it did bring to mind, well, two things. One, it sounds like great news about adding those extra drains, because it is really slushy in there after swim practice or whatever. Is there then an impact, a time impact on the Clippers? I know right now they're training in Wasaga, is that correct?
Yeah, so through you, Chair, the worst part of all of this, aside from the additional funds required, is that we had already scheduled a 3-week turnaround. We'd like to be a week. That's always been our goal. Through some of the issues we discussed earlier, that's not always been possible. The 3-week turnaround had to accommodate this initial tiling project. We're estimating 2 to 3 weeks more. So it could be a total of 5 to 6 weeks that the pool is closed while we deal with this. So the impact on our users is significant. The Clippers have a meet in October that they would like to host. I'm not 100% sure that's going to be possible. And while we have our largest swim intake is the fall winter swim intake, We've been charging hard to get our recreation management system up so that we can be ready to register people and do a good job in that regard, but there's going to be a delay. And we still every day have aquafitters knocking on the door wondering why the pool's closed. So, you know, it's a very popular facility. It's attracted a lot of users. And this is, for me, and I know my staff, is devastating news that we're going to be shut down even longer.
And good work for continuing to be able to work around the issues that we've had with the pool. Yeah, I can see the frustration, but through the smile. But yeah, no, they've worked very hard, and it's tough when people are knocking in the door every day wondering why they can't swim in a municipally owned pool. So thank you very much, because I don't think there's been many phone calls or emails through to the town, so you guys have effectively calmed their fires and made them smile. Any other comments? Councillor McLeod?
Yeah, mine is actually a request, if you wouldn't mind repeating some of the numbers that you provided at the beginning of your presentation. You were saying that it was a certain number of dollars that have been set aside for this work, and now it's a variance of 32,000, but I missed the first number, if you'd be so kind.
Certainly through you, Chair, the original scope of work was $144,970 for the retiling project. And that was to cover retiling in the washrooms, the vanity areas, the individual showers, and the entranceways. But the additional drains added will cost about $32,500.
And in a follow-up through you, Mr. Chair, because we're going to be closed for these additional 3 weeks on top of the 3 weeks that was budgeted for, that will be a revenue loss as well, because I believe the Clippers pay rent, I would imagine, and all of those aquafitters also pay. Do you have a thought on what the revenue loss for 6 weeks of a closed pool might be?
At this point, through you, Chair, I don't have the final number. The 3 weeks were planned and contemplated for our budget, but the additional weeks I can't, until we know for sure that it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We'll try to make it 1 week, but it's not likely. We'll try not to make it more than 3 weeks, but until we're done, I won't really know what the full impact is, but definitely there will be an impact on revenues this year.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
Sorry, buddy. Your smile is worth it. And look at this, walking without a cane. Love it. 8.2, Quarterly Communications Report. Mr. Ferguson, Communications Officer.
Good evening, Chair and Committee. This is a communications and engagement update for the second quarter of 2019, so April, May, and June of 2019. So we're committed to sharing information with residents, visitors, and business owners through quality communications and engagement opportunities. We share corporate and lifestyle information that enhances the experience of all who enjoy Collingwood, and our engagement encourages members of the public to become connected with their municipal government through a variety of opportunities. Some of our guiding principles are to be inclusive, to be respectful, to be adaptive, to be accountable, and to be responsible. And our goals are to inform the public, share reliable information, engage with the public, and build enhanced customer service and user experiences. In terms of engagement, we have, I guess, 4 key categories or different types of engagement that we offer. That would be to inform, to consult, to collaborate, and to empower. Empower is typically something like a referendum or an election. In the second quarter, we informed on some major events like the Elvis Festival and Canada Day. We informed the public on Parks and Rec initiatives, such as mobile parks, Bike Month, National Health and Fitness Day. We informed the public on arts and culture, such as National Poetry Month, and we also launched our Greener Collingwood initiatives and shared information on hybrid vehicles and tree planting and whatnot. We also informed the public on business opportunities, such as the fact that we're the #1 entrepreneurial community, and some youth entrepreneur opportunities. Corporate information is shared, such as tenders, the launch of our new website. We inform the public on opportunities such as jobs and what's happening with council. We share meetings, agendas, and minutes. We also share information on protective services and enforcement, such as Emergency Preparedness Week. Planning and development information gets shared with the public, and operations information such as street sweeping or road closures or whatnot also gets shared with the public. We've consulted with the public in business through our annual business satisfaction survey, through the digital Main Street initiative. We've consulted with the public through our new Engage platform, which we launched in the second quarter, specifically in Parks and Rec with the Urban Forest Management Plan. Our Parks and Rec team also consulted with elementary school youth on the Sunset Park playground design. And on the corporate level, we consulted with the public on the asset sale proceeds survey in the second quarter. And in terms of collaboration, our Parks and Rec department collaborated on things like accessible change rooms. We have the farmers market booth available. Our protective services collaborated to bring forward the coyote awareness sessions. We had an influencer takeover on Experience Collingwood that involved collaboration, further business networking with our business department, and collaboration to bring some pretty major events such as the movie gatherings. In the second quarter, we launched Engage Collingwood at engage.collingwood.ca. That was launched in May of 2019. In the second quarter, we were getting about 1,400 visits per month. We got 166 total registrations on the site in the second quarter. We had 974 total survey responses in the second quarter, and we offered engagement on asset sale proceeds, urban forest management plan, Sunset Point Park playground, and the other options like contact your council. We also launched the new Collingwood.ca website, and it was the 2019, recently we found out it was the 2019 gold winner at the .com Awards, which highlights successes in web marketing and digital communication. Big thank you goes to our web task force, which includes Clerk Almus, Krista Carter in Clerk Services, Mike Nanskville, Aaron Dulesky in our IT services, Tanya Mazza in PRC, and Greg Miller in Building Services. All played a vital role in bringing this new website to life. Our new website is getting about 31,000 visits per month in the second quarter, 82,000 page views per month in the second quarter. As a collective staff, we made about 190 updates or edits to the website per month. And our most viewed pages are typically the homepage, human resources and employment opportunities, festivals, parks, transit, events calendar, rec programming, aquatic center, contact directory, and development map. Lots of PRC stuff highlighted there in terms of interest visits. On social media, we have our town Twitter channel, @Town Collingwood. We have in quarter two, we had almost 3,900 followers. We push out about 66 tweets per month. On our town Facebook page, we have almost 2,000 likes in the second quarter, and we're reaching about 1,900 people per day, and we're pushing out about 66 posts per month on Facebook. Our town YouTube channel in the second quarter was getting about 800 views per month, and our streamed meetings channel was getting about 250 views per month. Also on social media, Collingwood Public Library is very active on Twitter and Facebook, and that's managed by the Library Public Relations Coordinator. Experience Collingwood is very active has a very large audience on Facebook and Instagram. They're sharing economic development news, tourism and events news, really highlighting Collingwood, and that's managed by our Director of Business and Marketing, Martin Ridlow. Healthy Kids and Wellbeing is very active on Twitter in the second quarter, and our Collingwood Museum has a very active Facebook page. Also in communications, we put out a monthly e-newsletter in the second quarter that featured about 20 items per month, and in the second quarter we had 573 subscribers. And if anyone's interested in subscribing, they can go to collingwood.ca and get that information and sign up there. We push out, in the second quarter, we pushed out about 10 news releases per month, and we responded to about 28 media requests per month. And also I'm doing daily media monitoring of headlines. Further to that, we push out the town pages, which go into the Collingwood Connection newspaper, print newspaper. And that works out to be about 55 items per month shared in the second quarter. And that is managed by Krista Carter in our clerk services department. Communications also builds communication plans, supports staff and council, works on graphic design and print materials, video, photography, event support, and so on. And we also do internal communications within the organization. If anyone has any questions of communications, they can reach out to me. My name is Adam Ferguson, I'm the communications officer. You can reach me at communications@collingwood.ca, and you can follow us by going to our website, collingwood.ca. Engage with us at engage.collingwood.ca. Check us out on Twitter @TownCollingwood, on Facebook @TownCollingwood, and on YouTube @TownOfCollingwood. And further, if anyone in the public has questions or concerns or feedback, or looking for information, our customer service ambassadors are happy to help. You can reach us at townhall@collingwood.ca or call us at 705-445-1030 and visit collingwood.ca where you can find a contact us form, staff directory where you could reach out to any department. And that's all. Thank you.
Excellent. Any questions from the public? See none? I'm just going to comment very quickly. The numbers might seem to be down, but I read it a little differently. Because the media requests are up, so a lot of the information is getting out through other sources, and I'm wondering if our reach, if say the fantastic media resource Collingwood Today shares a press release and they reach 4,000 people, does that go into our analytics that we see that?
We can't measure those analytics,
Right.
but we're definitely appreciative of all those who
Right.
share our information. Yeah.
So if the media requests are up, then there's more sharing of our information throughout. So actually the numbers probably are not down, they're probably reaching a greater thing because people are using online media to get all their information, i.e. like their virtual newspaper, and they could just be going there to get a broad section rather than, watching TSN, just watching the sports highlights at a local station. So they could be doing the same. So congratulations on the gold winning. And that's a very busy time for a lot of families, April to June, graduations, and maybe their minds are somewhere else, getting outside from the winter time into the nice weather and getting off their phones and off their iPads and off their computers and getting out and cycling. So congratulations for keeping it up in that timeline.
Something else to consider is that from quarter one to quarter two, we transitioned from the old website to the new website. So users maybe have more of a streamlined opportunity. They're able to get to the information they want quicker, easier with fewer steps. So there's maybe less page views because it's easier to get to the information.
It's easier to navigate.
Better search function, that kind of.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing the third quarter because, obviously the .com awards saw something and so will the community. So congratulations on that, and to the whole team, that's fantastic. Makes it easier for us and easier for the public to navigate. So any other questions or comments from the committee? Mayor Saunderson?
Well, I was just going to echo the congratulations. I think the community engagement and the social media presence for the town has had a quantum shift forward since the turn of the year, and you coming on board. So congratulations to you and your team. And I can tell you from the mayor's office, thank you for your support for the radio shows and the media requests that we have. So it's all very helpful, and I think we're putting our best foot forward. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. I just looked to my left and looked at Councillor McLeod and said, "You have a question?" And she shook her head no. So the answer is yes. Councillor McLeod.
Good work. Thank you very much, Adam. That's all I gotta say.
All right. Thank you very much. I've actually, one more departmental update. I've asked the chief just to speak on the positivity of his Alarms for Life program, and you've had a very busy summer in town and on the water, so if you could give us an update very briefly, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, we through Lindsay, our GIS representative, created an app for us for the Alarms for Life program, which were mandated under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act. I told you earlier that I thought that we would, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times what we've done, and we're already 5 times as many homes visited in Collingwood to make sure we have working smoke seal alarms. The app gives us the opportunity to visit houses, input information there, and not have to go back to the station and put it in a different program.
Wow.
We get a dashboard to see everything that's done, so the deputy and myself review on a weekly basis. And it's, again, kudos to Lindsay from GIS, because if she didn't do that for us, we'd be still struggling with the program. So it's a great, great news story for the town.
5 times, that's
5 times.
return on investment, positive.
For a free app that was created by town staff. So
Excellent.
That's a great thing.
So an app that we can share with other communities at a profit is what you just said. Thank you so much.
I think maybe
Excellent.
there was some lent from another community back to us, so, and then Lindsay led it, and other communities have asked for support.
Good, that's great, that's good. And then please just speak about your busy summer in the town and on the water as well, please.
Through you, Chair, yes, it has been a busy year for us. We, right now are sitting almost at 600 calls, and for us that would be an average for the whole year. So the summertime months did bring a higher response, and this has been our busiest response to the waterway and to the harbor for response that way. Luckily, we have a shared boat at this time with Parks and Rec that we can do the responses when it's available, but it's getting tougher for the availability of the boat. But we've been so far requested, I think we looked at it this morning, 41 times for response for people in distress out in the harbor and in the bay. So
That's tremendous. So
and that also,
Yeah.
sorry,
No problem.
Chair, that also includes if there's needed assistance for any kind of oil spills or hazards that way to be cleaned up. And not to say that other agencies aren't available out there, but again, our mandate is rescue and OPP is enforcement, so we have 2 different roles on the water, and that's why it seems to be a busier time. And we just installed how many more new dock systems and paddle boarders. It's an exciting time for them too, with the higher water levels. They say it's good for them, so then they kind of go a little farther than they should. And with all the other calls, we've had more fires than were normal in the summertime, and motor vehicle accidents has increased our call volumes a lot. So that's my update.
well, thanks so much for continuing to be the first ones there. We appreciate that. You guys are a shining example of excellence. Any questions or comments from the public on Chief's updates? No, because everybody's happy. Anybody from the committee?
Mr. Chair, my question is not for the fire chief. I have a couple of more discussion or items that I'd like to go over with the director of Parks and Recreation that I missed when he was at the podium. Is now the time to do that, or should I wait for other business?
Let's just do it now.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Director Culver. I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of an update on, I received an email from your office regarding a de-paving project, which has taken place this summer, and I was wondering if you could perhaps talk a little bit about it at this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the DPAY project was part of the work being done at Heritage Park. It was led by the Environment Network under a Trillium grant and also a grant through Green Communities Canada. Actually, I think they administered the Trillium on this point. But 110 square meters of asphalt were removed. The goal is to remove the asphalt so that the earth can again begin to filter and absorb rainwater, stormwater. And what they're going to actually be putting in this space is a community garden with a pollinator component to it, as well as access to fresh foods, which will be administered by Catalpa Community Services, which actually works with a group called Mother Care, which operates out of the Simcoe housing that's on 2nd Street. So it's a nice location, win, environmental initiative, and beautification happening all at once.
There was some discussion, you mind if I follow up, Mr. Chair? There was some discussion regarding basketball courts in the same area?
Yeah, Through you, Chair, the basketball courts are still to be installed. We've had a little bit of problem with the provider of the court surface, so we're actually reissuing the RFP in another direction, but we still plan on getting the basketball courts completed by the end of this year.
Thank you very much for that update. On another topic, earlier this year at this committee, we discussed the weeding of the medians in the gardens along the Pretty River Parkway, and there was some discussion regarding having those medians paved rather than planted. And I think we sent Director Culver a way to come up with or to delineate what had been discussed in his department. Is there any chance you could tell us a little bit about what's going on there?
Through you, Chair. So we essentially were sent back to scratch to reevaluate all that we've done over the years of it, trying to figure out how to manage those gardens and not put staff at risk. And so we're very close to the end of that. We've received some words from engineering relative to the manual they use, which doesn't allow us to elevate the flower beds, which was one of our recommendations, was if we elevate them, the sand and salt can't get in, we can plant and the maintenance is decreased. Unfortunately, it's taken this time to sort of go back and reevaluate. Raised beds are not possible. Any further obstructions added to the medians are not possible under the manual provided by the engineering department. And so we are basically going to be issuing a report back to council that identifies the same thing, but we will put more detail in after revisiting all of the options again.
And as a follow-up to that, so I've had some constituents come to me to talk about perhaps we could, take out the plantings and put in some art, sculptures and that sort of thing. And from what you're saying, that doesn't appear to be an option in that particular area because the MTO would consider it to be an obstruction?
Through you, Chair. So yeah, that was actually one of our considerations as well, is if could we do some sort of inanimate artwork that didn't require constant care the way plant material does. Unfortunately, because it's an added obstruction to the median, it would not be in compliance with what engineering is telling us the manual requires.
Thank you. My final topic that I'd like to get some comment on from the director is about the trail that runs beside the Pretty River. And we did discuss a little bit of it in the earlier discussion regarding trails. So earlier this year, the work was done to build a retaining wall and also a stair that goes down into the court that is in that neighborhood. But we still have construction fencing in that area, and it's been up ever since the construction began. When might we expect that project to be completed?
Through you, Chair, I believe we're expecting it in the next couple of weeks. The railings had to be fabricated from scratch, so they're essentially being fabricated as we speak, and we'd expect to receive delivery of them in the next week or two for installation.
Look at that good news.
Look at that good news. You are one busy director.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Culver.
Public delegations. If there's anyone in the public that would like to come up and speak with anything to do with this committee or anything discussed this evening, please feel free to come up and introduce yourself. 5 minutes.
Oh, I need 5 minutes, but I wasn't intending on speaking, but I guess my name's Ted Rowe. I'm here and I have a pet peeve, but your worship and council, you were all elected a year or so ago, and every one of you said you're going to be more transparent and open. And my frustration as a taxpayer, I had to go to Freedom of Information to try and get the survey that's being done for Sunset Point. And I have not got it. I am appealing it with the province, and I will go after it. I don't know why you ask for people's input and then you don't share it, so that we're having yet another meeting at Sunset Point. I and my family were at the last one, which represented about 20% of the people there. So there's only 4 of our family that was there. So you had that, you're having it again in 2 weeks. I just wonder what this is costing the town to do this process when you have consultants galore. I mean, I know they love it. but at what point do we see some action? And I think the other thing that gripes me, I heard Mr. Culver the other day on the radio talking about, or my question had been, the Indigenous Circle was done in 6 months from start, conception to finished. We're going into almost our third year to try and get something done at Sunset Point. And I just feel as parents and grandparents out there with kids, I'd be kind of outraged to see what's going on with the parks. And that's really all I have to say. If you have any questions, but I'd just love to know why you couldn't share. And I know I've been told it's the grand picture, we're not smart enough to know it. But there's, the last one I was at, one of the ladies said the same thing as I did. If we know what some of these 700 people said, we're all in agreement with it, or it's gonna add on to it, or it's gonna get somebody coming up with other ideas. So why wouldn't we share that? Why have a public come out, what you've already done on how we're gonna spend this infamous money whenever it shows up? But I got no idea if you're ever gonna share that. But why ask if you're not gonna share it? I don't know if you have any questions?
Thank you very much for your comments. I can assure you I am one of the most transparent people you'll ever meet.
Well then, why did you vote against it? To have them, it came before council,
Yes, it did.
and
Thank
you
you
voted
very
against it. So how can you say you're transparent? You know, that's my whole question, that's why I'm here.
Great.
You know,
No, thank you very much for your comment. And we'll
maybe
get
that's
an
not
answer.
good news you wanted to hear tonight, but
No,
I
no,
just,
thank you
that's,
very
that's
much.
the real world of what's going on out there.
There's a lot of things in the real world going on, i.e. homelessness and things, so
Right, yeah.
thank you very much for your comments.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, just a point of correction.
Yes.
This council did not vote not to release the results. This council voted to release the results with the staff report as per the staff's recommendation.
Yes.
In all due respect, that would be after the event. You're asking for input, which we gave, and you're still asking for input. Again, why give it to you after you've made up the decision? Like, I just don't know why you don't want to share it.
It's not a question of not wanting to share it, Mr. Rowe. It's a question of the timing of sharing. And this council has never said we're not going to share it. And when we
No, you're
did,
going to share it after the decisions are made. That's what you're
no,
saying.
the council staff, the way that works here, Mr. Rowe, is that we do input sessions. Those go to staff. Staff comes back with recommendations, and this council votes on it. That has never changed. What you're actually seeing now with this council, through these standing committees, is there is public discussion before these were happening. Because in the 2010 to 2014 session, there'd be a notice of motion put on the table, where they would waive notice and they would vote the same night, so that the public never had an opportunity to respond. So we are putting in place as opportunities for you to respond. We're engaging you. I guess you're taking issue with the timing of the release, but it will be released to you before decisions are made. Because it can't come to council without coming through a standing committee.
So it'll come before his presentation is made of what's going to happen to the park.
That's exactly right. It will come back to this standing committee. That report will be released with the agenda before. And then council, this standing committee will meet to review that recommendation, and the following week it will go to council. So you will
All
have
due
plenty of
respect, as I
opportunity.
said, I think it's a feeding deal that people see what is already, you know, you got 700 and some people, and now you're having meetings to get 20 people out. You've already got the information, then the other thing is then start acting on it. Thank you.
You're welcome. But not all people are online, so we put it out
So,
there in many
gentlemen,
different
just-
ways.
Let's
No,
just,
Mr.
I know, but let's just remember that we're still in committee and it still has to go through.
This is what
The
committee
chair.
is for.
Yes, no, I understand that, but we did get an understanding of how the committees are run right at the start. So it's not back and forth, everything goes through the chair, whoever that chair might be. So thank you very much for your comments, I appreciate it, I can see your frustration, and I don't disagree with you or agree, but I can see it. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. Any other public delegations? Ms. Skelton, please come up and introduce yourself.
Good evening, Mayor Saunderson, Chair Madigan. This is getting confusing. I'm here tonight wearing my BIA hat. We have a board meeting on Thursday morning, and there were a few things that we wanted to be able to take back. But also to let you know, we too have good news. We did a strategic planning session a couple of weeks ago, and we are going to be restructuring our board. So when our final report comes back from the consultant we brought up, which was the executive director of OBIA, we will be sharing that report with you. We are looking to radically restructure inside how we operate. Tonight, I'm here to say that we have a few concerns, also came up in our strategic planning session. The MOU, the Memorandum of Understanding, is stalled somewhere within the town hall. That's the Bible that we have for how we operate with, how we're able to operate with the various town departments, because we as a BIA reach to Works, we reach out to PRC, we work with people for different reasons, and we need to know the rules of the pool solidly. Some of our concerns, these are very practical things. The downtown needs a good power wash. The streets need the little machine with the magic brush going up and down. We've got so much dirt on the streets. It's a request. Also, the hydro in the gardens, there's a lot that has been capped off. We're now receiving, the hydro is to the gardens, it's cut off in many cases due to vandalism. Some of it's been capped, but in some cases it just has the caps on it. And we're starting to hear from parents, if I walk downtown with a little kid and they start to pull on the wires, what happens? It's broken, who fixes it? Thirdly, the skirts on the poles that get mangled by the, mostly by the snowplows. Either it could be like the tree guards and they could come off, and we just have a very elegant straight pole, or look at budgeting to replace them. Again, those are town issues. One thing that has come to our attention is the gardens. When the reconstruction of Main Street was done, there was to be a plan, and we've met with PRC, and we're looking at, the BIA is looking to undertake an actual RFP to hire a consultant for permanent plantings within the gardens, looking at native plants, and then there could be seasonal color added to those, but also an assessment of the gardens, that some of them are pretty small, like should they be gardens or should they be bricked in and we put great big planters on them with fancy things in them. So we're looking at doing that as well as by way of update. And last but not least, there's a challenge for the town of Collingwood from the BIA. Our main roles are decorating and beautification and promotion of the downtown. We're challenging you this Christmas/winter season to decorate the town hall. We decorate the street. We'd like you to decorate the town hall. So we're lobbing a softball into your court to say, what would you do with your town hall? There are lots of places where you can do light shows, where you can put, there are innovative, easy things like cedar around the windows, make it picture perfect. Get yourself included in the selfies. We put the sleigh beside them, right outside Mr. Farid's office, Mr. Amin's office. What are you going to do to make it look better? And I think I'm within my 5 minutes.
You are within your 5 minutes.
Okay. But I think the big thing with the garden plan is looking at consistency throughout. And again, it comes right back around to the MOU as to who maintains and how, and forward from that. Have I covered everything, Sue?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean,
Thank you.
the garden and just.
Yeah.
Come on up,
Sue
Sue.
Nicholson, our general manager.
Come on up, Sue.
Let me see.
I just put the bullet points.
I mean, and I know we've talked about the MOU for a while, and it's I'm old. We're getting a lot of staff retirements in the different departments, and not knowing the different roles of the two organizations we're going to run into that. We need to have, we have some history, but we're going to lose that if we don't have it written down. I mean, and it's important that we partner with all the town departments to make it happen. This is a showpiece here, and we need to ensure that it stays that way. So, and the gardens, I know Wendy and her staff do an amazing job on them, but I think when we sat down with Wendy and Dean, it was, let's get a plan in place so you know what you're planting, long range, let's get some perennials in that maybe will last, so you're not planting annuals all the time, but a real plan for the number of gardens that we have. Because I know when we did the streetscape project, we went from 3 main gardens, 1 in each block, to how many, Wendy? 27?
Something,
And it's wonderful. I mean, they're beautiful. But I know it's an issue of staff capacity and financial resources.
Mm-hmm.
So work together to get a plan in place so that we ensure that this downtown stays as beautiful as it should be.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions from the committee members? Thank you.
Mary, you don't have a question.
I know, it's shocking.
No, Marion's in complete agreement with your comments, and we have a beautiful downtown, consistency.
We appreciate that, Councillor McLeod.
Thank you very much. Other business? Is there any other business? Councillor Comey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a question for Director Culver, which I had sent him in advance, and that was to please ask for an update on the dockside mural, which I think we last heard about maybe at our last meeting, but it's been a minute, so I thought maybe we could get an update, please.
Director Culver.
Thank you, Chair. The dockside mural was removed and the wall was remediated over the course of the summer. The good news is that we were able to perform the work ourselves using facility staff, so we didn't have to tap into the budget that was allocated, or at least to any great extent. We did spend some of the capital funds on cleaning and repairing the wall. Our coordinator of arts and culture, Tanya, is currently assembling the temporary committee to oversee the call to artists that will replace the mural. As of right now, the building owner, an appointee of the BMFA, and the original artist of Heading Dockside have agreed to participate, with other members still to be selected, and a budget for the physical replacement will be requested for 2020.
Okay.
Through you, Chair, just a point of clarification. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Director Culver, so just to help me understand. So I think the budget funds allocated by council were not for the painting itself, just to remediate the wall? That's, I think it was about 30,000, or was that some of that going towards the artwork itself?
Through you, Chair, the initial idea was that we might be able to do both, but unfortunately what we had to do was take the mural down and remediate the wall first, formed the committee, and we're at this point in the process now.
So we used up all the 30,000 on taking down the mural?
No, there's significant amount left in that budget. We probably only used a couple of thousand of that, if any.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Any other business? Councillor McLeod? All right.
Why did you imagine I would have a question?
Your big smile. All right, well, thank you very much for tuning in at home, and move for an adjournment. Mayor Saunderson, all those in favor? You gave me the nod. You gave me the nod. Thank you very much, everybody at home. Thank you very much, committee. Good news stories tonight.